What's up, folks, and welcome to Indie Ramble. So, the game I have for you today may on the surface look like an action platformer. That's kind of what I thought it was, to be honest with you. But it isn't really. It's something definitely a bit different. And I'm actually late to the party on reviewing this one. I got code for this a while ago, but just got too many things on the plate. But I don't know if this is for me, but it's going to be for a certain group of people. And I could certainly see this having a big amount of interest in the speedrunning community. So this is Sentry City, and I'm playing the Switch version right now. And as you can see, it's not 8-bit, it's newer than that. The pixel art in this kind of reminds me of like older PC LucasArts adventure games or mid-gen Sierra adventure games. People will know what I'm talking about if you were around back then, but it's that type of pixel art. And this really is more of a puzzle game than anything else. So there are a number of different levels in here, as well as a handful of bosses. You're sort of making your way through this city, as you can see, and I'm a little over halfway through it right now. But I'm going to go back to the beginning here so I can show you guys exactly what this involves. So as I said, this is really more of a puzzle game than an action platformer, really. And the controls for it are actually quite simple. You have a jump button, you have a shoot button, and you have a reload button. That's it. You also only ever have the one gun, at least at the point that I'm at in the game. So as I said, it's simple but that's not where the challenge and I think the compelling elements for certain people will come in here. So your aim here is quite simple. You have to get to the end of each level, and there's like this weird biomechanical brain thing at the end, and you have to destroy it. And by taking out all of the ones throughout the city, you will, in theory anyway, put an end to the android uprising that's happening. That's all the story is in this. There is a little intro to it, but it's just the androids are rising up, you know, kill them all. That's all we're looking at here. And where this is more of a puzzle game is because there are different enemy types in here and different types of obstacles and environments. And what you have to do is figure out how to, you don't actually have to kill every enemy in a level in order to complete it. There's no bonus for doing that or anything like that. The only thing the game sort of grades you on is how quickly you complete the level. You'll see in the upper right corner there's a little clock, and you have time ratings out of 3. Well, they're not stars, but you know what those things are. You don't know what they are ahead of time. That's the only problem. I have literally only gotten 3 stars on one level, and it was the first boss, funny enough. Every other level I've gotten 1 star. I think the difference between sort of bronze, silver, and gold is pretty small, actually. So you're gonna have to probably do a lot of practice in order to get better, get good enough to get those up. But as far as I can tell, there's no rewards for them. There's no leaderboards in this game, and there's no rewards as far as I can tell for getting all 3 stars. You don't, like I said, there's no additional weapons, there's no extra power-ups, there's no anything like that. So it's really just for your own personal sense of pride and accomplishment, if you will, right? That's kind of all there is to it. And as you get through each level, you're going to deal with more enemies, more types of environments, and more types of challenges that you have to get through. As you just saw there, you can take 1 hit. That is it. 1 hit and you're dead. There's no health regeneration. There's no recovering from anything like that. If you get hit once by any environmental hazard or enemy fire, that's it. Now, in general, though this starts to change later on, the levels aren't particularly long, and they do have checkpoints within them. You may have seen me go through one of those before, the little computer terminal things, these things. So if you touch that, that's where you're going to come back. The timer doesn't reset unless you actually go into the menu and tell it you want to restart the level. But you can respawn ad infinitum at all of these different things. Now, you see here we got these sort of robots flying overhead that have very clear laser pointers under them where you have to hide under certain things. And you saw that robot there was sort of turning around back and forth. The enemies in this are not smart by any means. If an enemy is not facing towards you, you can shoot it as many times as you want and it's not going to turn around and notice. Some enemies stay in one pose the entire time, which is by design so that you'll have to figure out a way to get to them. Others, as you saw that guy doing there, sort of turn back and forth on a set pattern, and as long as they're not facing you, you can take them out. You can take cover behind objects as well, but if you aggravate an enemy, the weird thing is they will shoot at you ad infinitum, and they never run out of ammo. So if one guy, okay, so that little electric thing got me there, but if that enemy up there starts shooting at me, he will shoot forever. If you are behind cover, he won't necessarily hit you, but he'll never give up and stop. As you can see, he'll just keep shooting, 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 shooting. And sometimes you can deal with that, sometimes you can't. And if you can't, then you got to either let him kill you or choose to restart the level. That's why this is a puzzle game to me, because the combat is just too inelegant to be a proper action game. But I don't think a proper action game, proper traditional action game is what they were going for here. I think they were definitely looking to make something that's more of a combat puzzler, where you have to learn patterns and adapt to the levels, and where you will retry the levels, multiple times over in order to try to get the best time. But again, other than your own personal, goals, there's no point in doing it. The game doesn't give you anything for doing it other than saying, hey, good for you. That's kind of it. And that is somewhat of an old school design idea. Back in the day when online leaderboards weren't a thing that existed, that was how you had to do it. But it also feels in this modern day and age, you can do a little better than that. I think online leaderboards would have made a very big difference here. And as many other very tiny indie devs have shown over the years, they're not that hard to implement. So yeah, that's a little bit of a downside there. So yeah, 1 star again, as you can see. And there are a couple of boss encounters in this. I'll show you guys the first one, I guess, but this is where the game really tries to make itself more of an action title and doesn't really do it well. It is pattern memorization to a certain degree, and you have to learn what the enemy is going to do and learn to time your strikes within that. And at least in the case of this boss, the pattern recognition is quite simple, and you're going to see what that is. It didn't take me long to figure this out. So you see, he goes there, he goes there, he goes back here. He kind of corrects himself in a weird way like that. And then maybe I won't spoil the whole fight, but there's 2 phases to it. You saw the second phase start there. He turned into the floating head dealy, and then you take him out, and then that's it for that level. And you go on to the next one, and you're back to puzzling. And yeah, like some of these levels, I will say later on, I'll show you a later one here. They do get quite challenging and quite gnarly. They will require a lot of practice and a lot of persistence. If you're someone who gets frustrated easily and, after having to retry things a lot might break a controller, well, this may not be for you. And there are certain elements of this that will be frustrating. Like, for example, that your character takes forever and a day to reload their gun. Now, I say forever and a day, but in video, that's in video game terms. In reality, he's probably loading the gun pretty quick if he was an actual human being. Also, when you are reloading the gun, you can't move. So you have to time your reloads very carefully so that you don't risk getting hit by an environmental obstacle or an enemy as you go. You also only get 5 shots, as you can see, which is a little bit weird. Most guns of this type I thought had 6 shots, but I ain't no weaponsmithy type guy, and so that's another thing you have to be mindful of too. And yeah, it's trying to keep its concepts and what it desires of the player down to something relatively straightforward. The key draw of this game is not the combat, and it's not the way you interact with environments. It's like I said, it's a puzzle game. It's learning patterns, and it's learning how to maximize your run and how to get through the level in the most efficient way possible while taking no damage, because you can literally take no damage. And That's kind of the idea behind it. You're going to retry some levels a lot. But that's where I think that this title can have some value to speedrunners, because that's really what this is all about. The levels are timed, and getting a perfect run in this could have a very big competitive aspect to it. You know what would make that competitive aspect much more easier to be competitive with? Leaderboards. But the speedrunning community kind of has that taken care of internally too, right? So people who really want to put time into this could do some impressive stuff with it, and I do think that's its greatest strength. But I also don't feel that this game was built for speedrunners entirely. Like, that's not, like, there are some games out there that exist purely to be speedrun. This is not one of those. This is designed to be a bit more of a mainstream type of thing as well. And I don't think this is going to be for everybody. Am I going to finish this? Probably not. It's already gotten frustrating enough for me that I just don't have a lot of drive to beat it. Frig. Screwed that up too. I don't have a lot of drive to beat it. But games of this nature, I just tend to burn out of fairly quickly. It's not necessarily the game's fault. I do think this game understands its purpose. I think it does know what it's trying to be. And that is a formula that is not necessarily for everybody, but you know, it's not intending to be. And I like games that try to have an identity where they're like, we are targeting, you know, people who are into this kind of thing, not these people and as much of everyone else as we can get. So this type of robot here, he doesn't actually attack you. He just walks towards you, and you got to shoot him enough that he goes, yeah, peace. You got to knock him off there. So, and you can see here as well, some levels have little environmental things that you have to trigger like this. Cyberpunk future, of course, we have anti-grav lifts. I don't know why those aren't everywhere, but what do I know? And you see here, like, there's a ton of enemies everywhere, but again, they're static. They don't turn around in that case, and as long as you're behind them, they'll just take bullets happily and be like, dur, 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 dur. So it's a little strange in that respect. But there is challenge to be had here. I think if you want to get through this, and actually if you do want to set yourself a personal goal of 3-starring every level, good luck. It's going to take you a lot of practice. But that's how this is built for. I will say as well, I don't know if this is the Switch version or it's just me, but or if it's just the way the controls are actually designed. I have personally found there to be a decent amount of lag in this sometimes. I feel I have had more than a few times where I feel like I failed the jump because, you know, where you're like, I did that in time, the game didn't listen to me. And I've had that experience. Now that could be a me thing as well, but and yes, my capture setup here does introduce some latency, but I also tried this on my TV in game mode and had a similar experience. So, but you know, I was able to power through it, and to a certain degree you are able to compensate for it if you put in some practice, right? So that's the big robot there, except that guy shoots out pulse balls that you gotta watch for, things like that. The game does introduce some new enemies and stuff as you go along, not very often, but it does introduce them, and all the enemies are very obvious. It's very able to tell by looking at them what they're going to do, and they tend to telegraph themselves reasonably well, so you're not gonna get super surprised as long as you prepared for them and you're paying attention to what's coming at you. But yeah, this game's not, I don't think this game's very long based on the number of levels it has, though I'm sure the latter levels could take you, an hour or more each to get through. I could totally see that being the case. It's definitely challenging, but the slow pace of combat and some of the input latency and things like, and the sort of contrived idea that a lot of the robots just won't pay attention to you as you blow their skulls off, it's a little strange to me. And I am someone who tends to prefer, sort of faster action type experiences. I kind of like this universe. I do love the art style of this game. I think the music's pretty decent. There's the narrative in this is really just a basic framing device for the mechanics. There's really not much else. There's really not much to the storytelling in this. I don't think they were really trying to do that, but yeah, I get what they were going for here. I don't really think it's for me, but I could see a group of people who would potentially really enjoy this. And like I said, speedrunners would probably line up for this. People who can do amazing fast runs of this would get some impressed nods from me. There's no doubt about that. So if you are someone who likes to dabble in the art of speed running and is maybe looking for something new or something that doesn't have a massive leaderboard yet, where, you know, I've heard suggested before that if you're looking to get into speed running and want to feel accomplished quickly, it's often good to pick a game that doesn't have a large community built up yet, where you can put in some practice and score relatively high on its leaderboards, because it hasn't been around forever and there aren't a ton of strats yet, and you know, it doesn't have a large community yet. So this might be a good thing to dip your toe into if you do want to try out speed running, because it has a lot of mechanics that are very welcoming of that, I think, and it could be a neat way to do it. But it's neat and it's different, and that's one of the things I like about it. Maybe not up my alley, but perhaps up your alley. So yeah, that's Sentry City. It is out now. Maybe take a look at it if you're into combat puzzlers like this or speed running. But if you're looking for something that's sort of fast action, which you could be mistaken for thinking this is based on screenshots or things like that, that's probably not what you're going to get out of this one. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. If you like what you saw here, please do all the normal YouTube things. Those really do help the channel out a great deal. And leave a comment down below. You know, tell me, does this interest you? Do combat puzzlers interest you? What are other combat puzzlers that are out there that you actually really like? Because there are a lot of them. And it's a genre I don't tend to follow very closely. So I'd love to know, you bugger. So I'd love to know what people, what ones people think are cool that are out there. And you can also follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety streams a week. I'm going to be focusing more on tackling my retro backlog there for a while, but we do indies there too. And we have a fantastic little community there, and I'd love to see you be a part of it. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.